North West's latest fashion move is nothing to pout about. The eldest daughter of Kim Kardashian and ex-husband Kanye West shows off a set of angel lip piercings while attending the Vetements menswear Spring-Summer 2027 show June 26th during Paris Fashion Week.
She's 13 years old, and you already know what I'm about to say, don't you? We all knew this was coming. We watched it happen in slow motion. Because when you raise a child in that world, the world of the elite, the world of the spectacle, the world where everything is curated and nothing is real, this isn't an accident. Not an accident at all. And look, I need you to stay with me here. Because what happened at Paris Fashion Week on June 26, 2027, it's just the visible part. The part they let us see. But here's the thing though. The part they don't want you to know, that's buried underneath. And we're gonna dig that up today. You know, just like I know that when you see a 13-year-old girl walking down a runway in Paris with angel lip piercings, cheekbone piercings, a nose bridge piercing, and those dermal implants on her hands that look almost ritualistic, you don't think fashion? You don't think experimentation? You think something's gone terribly wrong. And the reason for that, well, you'll see. Let's start with the evidence. The footage is everywhere. It's hard to miss. North West, the eldest daughter of Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. And look, I'm not going to pretend like Kanye's current mental state makes this any better. We all see that too. She arrived at the Vetements menswear Spring-Summer 2027 show on June 26th. She's wearing a long-sleeve black vent shirt, a black pleated miniskirt, sheer black tights, black boots absolutely covered in chains, her signature blue hair and pigtails, and those piercings. My God, those piercings. She has metal in her hands, metal on her face, metal across the bridge of her nose. That's not a kid playing dress up. That's a statement being made by somebody. And I think you know exactly who I'm talking about. Actually, wait. Let me rephrase that, because I don't want to single out one parent unfairly. The truth is, both of them are part of this machine, but one of them built the machine, and one of them just lives inside it. Now here's where it gets interesting. And this is the part nobody talks about. North West is set to embark on a 14-day tour alongside Molly Santana, and she just released her debut EP in May. It's called North Forever. She's got a song with her dad, a little track called Piercing on My Hand. Let that sink in. Piercing on my hand. The very thing she's got embedded in her skin right now. That's not just a fashion choice. That's product. That's marketing. That's a lifestyle being sold to a child who never asked for any of it. And here's what I don't understand. Here's what I think you and I both feel in our gut. Why is nobody asking the question nobody wants to ask? Why is a 13-year-old girl the face of a brand that's pushing body modification this extreme? Why is she the one wearing the chains? Why is she the one with the metal in her face? Why isn't she in school? Why isn't she protected? And look, I'm not naive. I know the Kardashian machine is unstoppable. I know the West machine is just as powerful. But that doesn't mean we have to sit here and pretend like this is normal. Because we both know it's not. You know, just like I know that if this was a girl in your neighborhood, your daughter, your niece, your granddaughter, with piercings covering her face and her hands and chains on her legs at 13, you would call somebody, you would ask questions, you would demand answers. But in Hollywood, in the world of the elite, it's called art, it's called expression, it's called fashion. And that word, fashion, they use it to cover up everything, don't they? Let me slow down for a second. I'm going to speak to you quietly here because I think this part matters. And I don't say this lightly. When I see North West in those photos with those piercings and that blue hair and those boots covered in chains, I don't see a rebellious teenager. I don't see a young artist expressing herself. I see a child whose body is being used to sell something much darker. And I know that sounds heavy. I know that sounds like a leap. But look at the history. Look at every child star. Look at every young person who was paraded around in this industry. There's a pattern. And you know what the pattern leads to? It leads to silence. It leads to blackballing if they speak out. It leads to them being covered up when they break. And I'm not saying North is broken. I'm not saying that. But I am saying the people around her, they're not protecting her. And that should outrage us. That should make us feel something. So here's the next layer. And this is where I think you're going to feel that validation I promised. Britney Spears and Kevin Federline's sons, Jaden James and Sean Preston, walked in the Vetements show as models. Did you catch that? Britney Spears' kids. The boys that were raised in the shadow of one of the most famous conservatorships in history. The boys who watched their mother be silenced, drugged, and controlled for over a decade. The boys who grew up in that machine. And now they're walking the same runway as North West. Now they're part of the same spectacle. And nobody's asking the question, are these kids okay? Are these kids even safe? Or are they just assets? You see the pattern now, don't you? This isn't just one celebrity family. This is a system. This is an industry that commodifies children. That turns them into walking billboards. That puts metal in their faces and chains on their boots and sends them out to perform for the world's richest people while we sit at home and scroll through Instagram and tap the photos like it's entertainment. But here's the thing, and this is the part they don't want you to think about, because they don't want you to realize that every time you click like on a photo of Northwest's new piercings. You're validating it. You're saying it's okay. You're saying this is normal. And it's not. It's not normal. And I think deep down you know that. I think you already suspected the truth long before I said a single word. So let's talk about the music, because that's where it gets even more disturbing. Northwest released her debut EP North Forever in May of 2027. And again, she's 13 years old. Now look, I'm not a prude. I'm not a pearl clutcher. I know kids make music. I know kids are creative. But there's a difference between a kid singing in her bedroom and a kid being pushed onto a global stage with a full management team, a tour schedule, a marketing campaign, and a 14-day tour alongside an adult artist named Molly Santana. You don't know Molly Santana? You will, because she's part of this universe now. She's part of the machine, and so is North. And that song she released with her dad, Piercing on My Hand, that's not just a song title, that's a manifesto. That's an announcement to the world that body modification is her brand, her identity, her product. And you and I both know that didn't come from her. That came from the people around her, the managers, the stylists, the record executives, the people who see her and they don't see a child, they see a revenue stream. Now I want you to think about something else. And this is the part where I connect the dots for you. The same week, Northwest walks the runway in Paris with all that metal on her face. We see Britney's boys walking that same stage. And we see the fashion world celebrating it. Vetements, the brand that put those kids on the runway. They're not stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. They know the controversy drives press. They know the outrage drives views. They know that every conversation about how inappropriate this is just puts more eyes on their brand. So they do it anyway. Because in the world of the elite, there is no such thing as bad publicity. There's only more money. And that's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. The industry doesn't care about these kids. They've never cared. They used Britney. They used Britney. They used Kim. And now they're using the next generation. And we're supposed to smile and nod and call it fashion. But you and I both know what it really is. It's exploitation. It's performance. And it's dangerous. Now I want to take you back to September of 2026, because that's when North first debuted those dermal piercings on her hands. Remember that? I remember thinking, that's a lot for a 12-year-old. But the media didn't say that. The media said she's orgy, she's experimenting, she's following in her father's footsteps. And I remember thinking, are we really doing this? Are we really pretending a preteen getting implanted metal in her skin is just a natural phase of development? Because we all know it's not. But they don't want you to know that. They don't want you to feel that outrage. They want you to accept it. They want you to normalize it, because the moment you normalize it, they can push the boundaries further. And they will. They always do. And this is the part where I talk about the question that nobody, and I mean nobody, is asking. And it's the question that keeps me up at night. Who is protecting these children? Because it's not the parents. It's not the media. It's not the fashion industry. And it's definitely not the law. So who's protecting them? Who's standing up and saying, no, nobody. Because if you speak out, you get blackballed. You get canceled. You get labeled as jealous, as bitter, as outdated, as someone who just doesn't understand the new generation. And that's how they silence us. That's how they silence the people who care. They make us feel crazy for caring. They make us feel old for caring. And we've seen it happen over and over again. You know, just like I know that Britney's story is the blueprint. She was a child star. She was paraded around. She was exploited. And when she tried to fight back, they put her in a conservatorship. They drugged her. They controlled her. They made her a prisoner in her own life. And the public, we watched. We watched it all. And we did almost nothing. We commented, we liked, we shared. But we didn't stop it, and now we're watching it happen again. Different kids, different names, same machine, same exploitation, same silence. And I'll tell you something that I don't usually say, something that feels personal to me. When I see Northwest in those photos, I don't see a celebrity kid. I see a little girl who never had a choice. I see a little girl who was born into a world that's been eating its young for decades. And I think about what it must feel like to be her. To have no privacy, no normal childhood, no understanding of what it means to just be a kid. And every time she steps out, the world is watching, judging, consuming. And nobody's asking her, do you actually want this? Do you actually want to be the face of this? Do you actually want those piercings? Or were you just told that this is who you are now? I don't know the answer to that, and I don't pretend to. But I do know that we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility not to look away, not to scroll past, not to double tap and keep scrolling like it's nothing. Because it's not nothing. It's everything. It's a child's life. It's a child's body. It's a child's future. And we are all complicit if we just stay quiet. Let me bring it back to the runway one more time. Because there's something I didn't mention, and I think you're going to want to hear this. North wasn't just a spectator at the Vetements show. She wasn't just sitting in the front row. She was part of the presentation. She was a featured element. The whole thing was designed to include her. She walked. She posed. She showed off those piercings. And the crowd applauded. The crowd loved it. The crowd ate it up. And I'm telling you, there's something deeply wrong with that. Something deeply wrong with a world that applauds a 13, 13-year-old with chains and metal on her face while the cameras flash and the headlines scream, iconic. But it gets worse. Because while Northwest is being celebrated for her look, do you know what else was happening in the world? June 26, 2027. I don't need to tell you that the world is on fire, that the economy is uncertain, that families are struggling, that kids everywhere are facing real challenges that have nothing to do with fashion. And yet, the media wants us to focus on this. They want us to focus on Northwest's piercings. They want us to click, to comment, to debate, to argue. And while we're doing that, we're not looking at the things that really matter. We're not looking at the systems that are breaking down. We're not looking at the corruption. We're not looking at the elites who are laughing all the way to the bank. And that's not an accident. That's the design. Distract, divide, entertain. And while you're distracted, they're doing whatever they want. And listen, I know some of you are probably thinking, okay, but North is just a kid. She's just having fun. She's just expressing herself. And I hear you. I really do. I don't want to judge a child. I don't want to be the person who attacks a 13-year-old. That's not what this is about. This is about the adults. This is about the system. This is about the people who are profiting off this child's body and calling it freedom. That's the real scandal. That's the real story. And here's the part that really gets me. North has released an EP. She's touring. She's walking runways. She's a brand. She's a product. She's a machine. And she's 13. She doesn't have a driver's license. She can't vote. She can't sign a legal contract. But she can be the face of a global campaign. She can be the star of a fashion show. She can have metal implanted in her skin. And the world watches and says nothing. We all knew this was coming. We all saw the signs. We all watched Kim and Kanye raise their kids in the spotlight. We all watched the family build an empire on attention. And we all knew, at some point, that attention would demand something more extreme, something darker, something that made people talk. And here it is. And I'll ask you something. And I want you to really think about it. I want you to sit with it for a second. If this was a family in your town, if this was your neighbor's daughter, what would you say? What would you do? Would you just scroll past? Would you just shrug and say, not my problem? Or would you say something? Would you ask a question? Would you make a call? Would you look that parent in the eye and say, what are you doing to your child? Because that's the question we need to be asking the Kardashians. That's the question we need to be asking Kanye. That's the question we need to be asking every single person who stood by and watched this happen and said nothing. Where are you? Where is the outrage? Where is the protection? And look, I don't know North. I don't know what's in her heart. I don't know if she loves those piercings or if she hates them. I don't know if she wanted to be on that runway or if she was pushed. And I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers. But I do know this. She is not the problem. She is the symptom. She is the visible part of a much bigger sickness. A sickness that's been infecting Hollywood for generations. A sickness that treats children like props. That treats fame like oxygen. That treats privacy like it's optional. And the reason I'm telling you this, the reason I'm sitting here right now, speaking to you like you're a friend I trust, is because I believe we can do something about it. I believe we can stop looking away. I believe we can stop pretending this is normal. I believe we can start asking the questions that nobody wants to ask. And we can start demanding answers. Because you know what else? This isn't just about North. This is about every child. Every child who's being pushed into the spotlight too young. Every child who's being exploited for profit. Every child who's having their innocence taken away before they even understand what that means. And if we don't speak up for them, who will? I'll tell you who won't. The media won't. The PR teams won't. The fashion houses won't. The record labels won't. They're all making too much money. They're all benefiting too much. They're all complicit. But we have nothing to gain. That's what makes us different. We have nothing to gain from speaking the truth. And that's exactly why we have to do it. You know, just like I know that every time a child star crashes, every time a young celebrity goes off the rails, there's always that moment where everybody says, we should have seen it coming. We should have seen it coming. We should have done something. We should have said something. And then we forget. We move on. We let it happen again. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of watching the same movie over and over again. I'm tired of the sadness. I'm tired of the waste. I'm tired of the silence. And if you're watching this right now, if you've made it this far with me, I know you're tired too. I know you feel it. I know you see it. And I know you want something different. So here's my question to you. And I want you to really think about this. I want you to answer it in your heart. I want you to talk about it in the comments. I want you to ask your friends. I want you to ask your family. I want you to ask anyone who will listen, who is going to protect the children of the elite, because it's not the law. It's not the media. It's not the industry. It's not the parents. So who is going to step up? Who is going to say enough is enough? Because if it's not us, and I mean you and me, then who's left? We watched Britney. We watched the Jackson kids. We watched the Osbourne kids. We watched them all. And we told ourselves it wasn't our business. We told ourselves it was just the way Hollywood works. We told ourselves they had everything they could ever want. But you and I both know having everything isn't the same as having enough. And money can't buy you protection. Money can't buy you safety. Money can't buy you a normal childhood. So I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to leave you with that image. A 13-year-old girl standing on a runway in Paris, chains on her boots, metal on her face, blue hair and pigtails, and the whole world watching and applauding. And I'm not going to give you a neat ending. I'm not going to wrap it up in a bow. Because there's no neat ending here. There's only a question. And that question is hanging in the air right now. What are we going to do about it? You tell me, because I've been talking long enough, and you've been listening, and you're awake, and you're aware, and you're already asking yourself the same question I'm asking. So go ahead, say it, type it, think it, feel it. What are we going to do about it?